Hey y'all, I'm Andy. Welcome to my channel, and in today's video I'm going to be discussing the topic of traveling and just that difficult question of whether or not it's really worth it. I feel like there's this good majority of people who believe traveling is necessary, it's life-changing, and then you have this other group of people who just don't believe it's that important. They feel like traveling might be overrated. And I've had the opportunity to travel to different countries this summer, and I've also visited a lot of different cities here in the US, and I just wanted to talk about what I've learned, and maybe this can help you tackle that difficult question of whether or not it's worth it to travel, especially if you're considering making plans to travel. So let's go ahead and dive into what I've learned. Traveling opens your perspective on the world. I feel like it might be more appropriate to say that traveling further opens your perspective on the world, just because there's so many ways to open your perspective on the world and become more open-minded that doesn't require traveling, but it just really depends on your situation. One of the ways that my perspective on the world opened up, this might not be the same for everyone, but I became exposed to so many different ways of living that I wasn't aware of before, or I was aware of, but like actually seeing them for myself in front of my eyes was just a whole different thing. Like, my mind was just kind of closed-minded to the ways that I've lived here in the US. But a lot of cities in Europe are made of very dense housing. There's constant activity on the streets. So if you're a person who loves being around other people, you enjoy all the commotion, this might be a very desirable place to live. From another perspective, you might see this as overcrowded, too chaotic, and just unpeaceful. This was a really valuable experience to see all of this, just because it really got me thinking of how do I want to live in the future. If you have the means to want to change your lifestyle or anything like that, I think being able to travel and see these different ways of living for yourself really makes you think like, okay, what would be most appropriate for me? Or it might make you curious to want to try different living situations. If you have the opportunity to live in a foreign country for a longer period of time, your wants become more clear. You can do this a lot of different ways, whether that be a study abroad program, an internship abroad, or even getting a job in a foreign country is also an opportunity. You're actually able to be there in the country for a long period of time. That's when I feel like your mind, your perspective on the world just keeps on growing. I feel like you go for a little, yes, it opens your perspective on the world, but the longer you stay, the more open-minded you become. So when you're there for a long period of time, it allows you to actually immerse yourself into the culture and really engage with the locals. The second thing that I learned is that traveling has something to offer for everyone. I think that some people believe that traveling is only for a certain type of people, like people who, especially traveling like to European countries, is only for people who might be obsessed with history or museums. The truth is, you actually don't have to be obsessed with any of these things. Once you're actually there, you actually might discover a lot of interests that you have that you didn't even know. There can honestly be a million reasons to want to travel, but there can also be no reasons, and you just might want to travel because you want to, right? But for most of us, traveling can be really expensive and we don't always have the opportunity to do it. So if we are thinking of making the time, saving up the money to do it, there's so many things to think about, especially whether or not it's actually worth it. If you're a huge history lover, visiting Europe can sound very appealing. There's just so much to see. What's even more cool is just that each country has its own different story, and there's just so much to learn. So I think if you're really into history and you're thinking about doing a trip, an international trip, visiting Europe is definitely worth it. European countries have amazing architecture. I particularly really liked the Gothic architecture in Spain. There's also more modernist architecture. If you're interested in ancient ruins, Greece is definitely the place to be. And if you love going to museums, there's so many museums everywhere. Art museums in Europe are amazing. If you're looking for historic archaeology sites and museums, Europe definitely is a place to be. Europe is also a great place for shopping and trying new foods. So it's just a great place to visit and spend quality time with others. So the third lesson that I've learned from traveling is that it can really shape you as an individual. Through traveling, you're able to create memories that'll last a lifetime. The younger you travel, the greater the likelihood that these experiences will have a drastic impact on your life in terms of self-development and just like your overall character. Traveling when you're older can also be very beneficial, but the younger you do it, the sooner you can benefit from the experiences. Just having the memories on their own and being able to recall all those amazing moments brings a lot of pleasure and joy. You're also able to use all the knowledge that you gain from traveling earlier. So, and by this I mean like just lessons that you learned from traveling, things that you learned about yourself and your wants. And I think this can be really crucial, especially if you're a teenager or you're in your early 20s when you're making big decisions for your life. Something I feel like isn't talked about as much is you might just find out that traveling isn't for you, and honestly, this is a really good thing, and the sooner you find out, the better, because I feel like traveling definitely is romanticized in a lot of ways, and let's say you're able to do it and you're like, wow, this isn't really for me. The sooner you stop setting aside time to do things like that, or setting aside money, because now you know, hey, I'm not really interested in this, and now you can dedicate your time and energy into different things. Earlier in my video, I discussed how traveling can open your perspective of the world, and I mentioned how that you can do this in a lot of different ways other than just traveling internationally. And something that I learned is that there are so many opportunities in the US alone to open your mind and see amazing things. For instance, I think of California and everything it has to offer. Like, it has amazing beaches, some beautiful national parks. If you're looking for nightlife, you can go to Los Angeles and have a good time. And then you have Hawaii, that's dramatically different from all the other states, that you're able to get this overseas feel without actually having to travel internationally. There's just so many different things to see in each state. You have the East Coast that's really different from the West Coast, and there's all these states that people can explore. So before I end this video, I just want to say that traveling can be a very impactful life experience. As a reward, you gain so much knowledge, and like I said, I think traveling can be for anyone. But for those people who are just very curious and wonder a lot about the world, it can be especially fulfilling. But yes, I definitely recommend traveling, especially if you're debating on whether or not to do it. Well, that's all I have for y'all. Thanks for watching. Bye.